right, best of the year lighting edition, starting with the #1 most popular as voted by you guys and what you pick up, and it is?
It's the AI Prime, but shortly behind it, we've got the XR15.
Yeah, so AI Prime actually was the #1 by a landslide last time, but now the ratio has shifted a little bit over to the XR15. What do you think?
I think it's because a lot of reefers are really tending towards getting a slightly larger fixture with a broader illumination area so that you're getting less shadowing going on. And the AI Prime does have a slightly tighter lens, so you've got a little bit more confined light, which does work well for smaller tanks, which is probably why it's still as popular as it is.
The knowledge on all of this stuff is evolving, and definitely beginner light, AI Prime, really, really easy, low profile light. It is a entry level option for sure, and part of the price point, probably why it will always be popular.
Big time.
The blade probably eating into that a little bit, as we'll explore that. But the XR15 is hitting today's standards, which is in almost every case, wider is just better. Not wider the light source itself, but the lenses and how it distributes light. We've done all our investigates. Definitely that was one of the widest ones out there, and it matches why you guys are picking it up. All right, there is a backup to this one. What is the #1, not just as an individual, like actual light source, but as an entire line of lights, which is the #1 so far this year?
It's the AI Blade.
Surprised, I didn't see that coming. The AI Blade here in the last few months has really taken off. I did not think that strip lights have been around for a long time. But it's a new design to a more diffused, illuminated. It has different spectrums in it, has the AI app or even the Mobius app that you can be used for it. So up in the game a little bit, but as a line, you're seeing people adapt this fill light, not just to cover up the whole light, but also to make other lights better. Like what?
Using it in conjunction with something like a Prime that has a tighter beam angle, so you can get that fill light in there, as well as something like a Kessel, where you want to soften that really, really strong shimmer and get some more fill light in there. It does a really good job of that, but they also do an amazing job just on their own, sort of like a T5 would, but with the controllability that people want out of a fixture these days, and in a really, really slim profile that just looks great. It's easy to hide, it's not overwhelming, and it fits the entire tank.
In our experiments, we found that I never really thought about a T5 as a strip light, but that is exactly what it is. That little reflector and the bulb is a strip light, right? So in our experiments, we actually found that in BRStv Investigates to be true. And we also found what your other thing said is true, is when we add the fill light to any light that we already own, it just makes it better. It's all in the data. You can see that the distribution flattens out. You can see that you can add in spectrums that your light might not have. So a lot of lights, super heavy focused on 450. The glow will add in a whole bunch of that violet range. So not just adding in more fill light and reducing the shadows, which you can see in the data, but also adding different spectrums that you might not already have. All right, moving on to specific applications. Best and how to use the right tool for the right job. And in this case, best for a Nano. What is it?
It's kind of a surprise, but not really when you think about it. It's the Blade Grow. Mm-hmm. It's a small form factor fixture. You can get them in a 12-inch length. Plus, they come with the mounts already ready to just drop on top of a tank. There's a lot of things going for it. You get the controllability at a really reasonable price point and enough par output to, even in a small tank like that with just one fixture, you can even keep some SPS. So it's hard to say no.
It kind of reminds me of like the BioCubes of old, where one of the attractive pieces is they had like a hood on the top, and the lights were just like flush with the top, and you just didn't have this eyesore of all of these lights and cords everywhere. So when you plop the blade right on the top of it, it's comes with little brackets, and you can just slide it, like put it right on the top there, and you just don't see the lights anymore. It's not part of it.
No extra expense to get a separate bracket or a separate mounting fixture. It's all just right there, ready to go.
Ease of install. Put it on. In that spirit, though, we do have a couple of runner-ups. So what is one of them?
One of them is the Aquamax Prism.
Mm-hmm. This guy right here in this little box.
The CC2, yeah.
There's also the other larger brother to that as well,
which is the Kessel A360X.
Mm-hmm. So this one right here is like a little teeny panel. inexpensive and also fairly easy to mount. But you're looking at like your standard like zoanthid tanks, right?
Yeah, lower light output for sure.
Okay. So I might have like a 20 gallon, which might be a little bit bigger than some people call it Nano, but it's actually pretty popular. What people call that. So in that case, if it was just like lit up with SPS corals, actually, you're going to want something a little more powerful. And A360 hits it for me, partially just because it's also really small, no profile.
Exactly.
Doesn't get bigger than the tank.
Not going to be visually distracting sitting over the over top of the tank. Plus, you have that really awesome Kessel Shimmer that I really like, and the ability to just very easily tune it with their spectrum knob, so that no matter where you're hitting that knob, it looks good to you. Your corals are getting what they need at the same time.
Like you can imagine it right now. It's like your little set, desktop tank. That tank that sits in your kitchen or whatever has that little sparkle. It's a little heavier from the Kessel. Again, easy to install, tons of mounting options. So if you're looking for a Nano, the blade probably the easiest option, also low cost. The lowest cost probably the Aqua CC, and then if you're gonna kill it with light, the A360 from Kessel. Good options. All right, next up, pretty popular tank that I'm about to mention, which is a SPS tank with no hood. What's the best for that?
I think the best option for that is going to be the Radion G6. It does a really good job of splitting the difference between getting that wide light, that wide form factor, without having a full hood or a large bulky fixture over the tank. You're getting that wide spread, but in still a modular looking fixture. It's a little bit less visually overbearing over the tank, but the performance is going to be very similar to what you would get over a full fixture.
That sounds about the conversation that I have over and over again, because you'll hear it out of me every time. Like bigger physical form factor is better for biology. Like there's just 100%. No way around it, man. The bigger it is, the more it'll wrap the animals in light and from the harder angles and when they shadow each other, all of that. But in the end, I've had this conversation 1,000 times with 1,000 reefers, and they all want lower profile on the top of the tank, which is like the aesthetic appeal of it is at total odds with the biology.
Yeah.
And at the end of that conversation, it usually lands. That's probably why the Radions are like going to be the most popular for quite a long time, is because what they've got is a medium-sized module, ultra wide angle light that spreads all over the place, then uses the reflections off the glass to reflect back in and create hit other areas that would otherwise be shadowed. And so it's that middle ground of, I really do want great biology, but I also don't want 8 million cords, and I don't want giant, huge lights all over, and I want easy to mount. And the Radion G6 finds itself right in the middle. All right, next category here is best SPS light, where aesthetics are not a concern. Maybe you just don't care, or maybe you got it in a hood, but I just don't really care. Biology first. What are the best options then?
Number one, tried, tested, and true is a T5 fixture. It's that large form factor light. It's going to cover the entire tank. You're going to blanket the animals front to back with all of the light they're going to require. If you don't want to go T5s, you want to stay with the newer technology, you can achieve virtually the exact same thing using several blade fixtures. And there are those brackets to hold the blades nice and tight together from, I think, 3 to 5 or 6 fixtures. That way you can create that T5 look, but have the controllability, have that color pop of LED for the corals. And if you want to go with a slightly higher output technology, you got the Radion G6s and then using blades for fill light.
That's called, we'll call it the 3-point hybrid.
It's the best.
Right? Yeah, fill light makes everything better in the end of the story. So that's the thing, is like the reality of it is, if you're thinking about biology first, and like what I want to do is provide the best I can for the corals, there's no question the light source should be bigger than the thing you're trying to illuminate, which is the aquascape, which means if the light is basically the same size as the size of the tank, it's bigger than the aquascape, it will reflect off the glass. And this is where we found all the success in the past using T5s and halides with giant reflectors and everything. All right, going into it, a lot of us have tried the modules, then we've ultimately found out more modules, more better. And then we ultimately found out that actually that isn't true. It's if I had a module flanked by fill light could be T5s, it could be LED strips, doesn't matter, same performance. They're not a magic photon in there. If we do that and then it fills it in and the lights become bigger than the object we're trying to illuminate, all of a sudden we have way, way better results. But here's the reality. is I don't know anybody who thinks that this is the most attractive thing on top of the tank. It is one of the best performing things, but in our experiments that we've done in the showdown this year, what we found was it really doesn't matter which of the strips you use, or all of them will perform very similar to T5s. And in fact, that's where we had that conversation of where T5 really is just a light strip, the reflector. But the blades specifically, if you used 5 of those blades, you'd have way higher par than this, and you actually would have more even distribution and controllability over all the things that people like. And you can even mount them lower if you wanted and still retain that nice even spread that comes out of it, because the lenses have been engineered to do that.
Yes.
All right, so I would say that if you're looking to do that, bigger is better. It really doesn't matter. Also, if you already own modules, adding fill light from the strips is a way cheaper way to do it. There isn't one specific light that I'm going to recommend above all others, other than the bigger the light source, the fewer the shadows that you will see. And if you don't want to rebuy everything, dude, strips, doesn't matter which brand you buy from, pick one and you'll add in the fill light that you're looking for. All right, next one is best beginner light or entry-level light. And in this case, cost absolutely matters. Not just cost of light itself, but cost as measured as price per par, meaning I want to get the most possible output for my dollar in this case. And how do I achieve that?
Well, no surprise here, we're actually going to see the AI blade again, specifically the Grow model. You get a lot of par for very little money, relatively. Also, the blades are just a really easy fixture to use. Right out of the box, you've got tank mounts. That's going to make it really simple. You pull it out, drop it right on the top of the tank there. You've got your app control on it as well. So if you want to use it with your phone and be able to dial things in, plus you got presets, it's just going to be a really easy light for a beginner to use, drop on the tank and have success with. Right up behind it, which is a slightly less expensive option, are the Aquamax Prism lights like the CC2 here, or even the larger form factors. They do also have control. It is in the form of a little manual controller, but again, it's going to be easy to get it up on the tank. It's not crazy output, so the likelihood you're going to have any issues with burning your corals from overlighting them is very, very low, and ultimately it's just a really good buy for what you're getting.
One of the other ones in there, of course, is the AI Prime. The AI Prime and the Aqua CC or Prism don't have as low of a cost per par as the AI Blade Grow, because that Grow is actually the lowest cost price per par of all 50 different configurations of lights that we tested. So it's
kind of nuts.
The cheapest that we can do. But on top of that, some people do prefer that, like if I had like a little teeny cube, that, you know, having just a single light on the top of it, and even using the glass as reflections, and some people may prefer that. So AI Prime in there, this guy's really easy, especially on something like a Nuvo tank that's long, you know, it's got a little stand on, I can still get in. But those are the options that I think that most, you know, entry level or beginner lights or reefers would benefit from. All right, this one's near and dear to my heart. It's best shimmer. Okay, this is a little bit of a nuance to the tank, but it really matters to me because without the shimmer, it looks like a painting of a reef, like an empty, hollow thing on the wall. When you add the shimmer in, it brings it all to life. Yeah. It has like rhythm and movement to it, and all of a sudden, man, like I feel like I have a little bit of Fiji in my house. There are some options that are better than others. What are they?
The best option is got to be the Kessels. The Kessel, specifically the A360X, is one that I've always really liked. That high contrast shimmer from a single point of light with perfect color blending visually. You get zero disco effect. It is just wide, big, dramatic caustic lines. And if that's what you're looking for, you can't do better than a Kessel.
Yeah, so for me, the Kessel is like a catch-22. There's no way around it that little teeny lens isn't going to like focus light. Even though it ends up as a wide angle light, that little teeny lens catches the ripples on the surface and creates those glitter lines, you know, or caustic lines in the tank. For me, sometimes it can be a little too harsh, a little too perfect almost.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you imagine what the sun would look like without the sky.
Yeah.
right? It would be super sharp because you wouldn't have the skylight coming through, like blending it all out in the sand, right? It would just be really, harsh.
Chaotic, yeah.
And so for me, it's always the Kessel with some type of fill light. For me, historically, it had been the T5s, now shifting to strip lights, just because I don't want to monkey around with the bulbs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Kessels plus fill light. If you add in the fill light, you can mute the shimmer to exactly where you want it. All right, next one is best LPS light. There's a lot of people looking at this one.
Oh, yeah.
But the differences are more nuanced now because I don't actually need that high power of a light anymore. So paying for more par isn't really going to do a whole lot of value for me. Now it's about the quality of the light and a lot about it, but spectrum. So what are some good options for that?
Probably one of the best options for LPS is going to be an XR15 Pro or even an XR30 Pro, just depending on the size of the tank. You're going to get a lot of light. You're going to be able to spread it out a lot, but the spectrum is really, really important, like you were saying, and those lights, they nail it.
Yeah, so by nail it, there's a lot of lights out there super dependent, just hitting royal blue and this 450 peak, which is not ideal for biology of these corals, because it's really only hitting one of the types of the chlorophyll and not really focusing on the carotenoids. And this nerd talk for how do I provide for the biology energy needs for the coral? So if par isn't, the thing that I need the most, the quality of the light, expanding that blue spectrum, man. So how do I get all of the blue spectrum that hits my, chlorophyll A, C2, the perdininin, and other carotenoids and provide the energy needs? And you're going to see that with the Radion. You're going to go all the way from near UV to all the way to really light blue. This is the light that's provided by the sun. And one of the things you can see is actually if you tune down the royal blue channel, all of it becomes actually in balance, pretty close to the sun even.
Yeah.
And a much wider blue spectrum. This is what I'd be looking for, for my LPS tanks if I want to buy the best available options out there now. Par, really not necessary. Quality of light and spectrum is really the most important thing. All right, next one is, I would say, a unique challenge for about 20% of you, which is I can't actually mount these things within 8 inches. I got to go a little bit higher than that. And if I use the most common options out there that are designed for that low level, if I raise them up, light just spills all over the floor. It's a big, huge waste for no reason.
Yeah.
So which lights are optimized for being a little bit higher the best?
So in this case, we're looking for lights that have a tighter beam angle that are going to keep that light inside of the tank even as you raise a fixture off of the aquarium. And that's going to be like your Orphex, like the Atlantic, even their strip lights, as well as the Kessel lights, which have those magnetized lenses you can get on there to focus the light into the tank. And then lastly, we've got the Hydras, which have fairly tight beam angles as well. You can get them higher off the tank without getting a ton of light spill into the room and keeping that light over the corals where you want it.
You see the Orphex really common installs inside of hoods and stuff where they're, 1.5 feet off the tank. I've seen in many cases where they're actually like whole grids of them that are, feet off the tank. And it's a big, giant grid light, but it does have, lenses that, focus it down. And part of the benefit of that is you can get it up and out of the way. If you want to mount this thing, 2 feet above the tank or 20 inches or so, I can still get in this tank really easy without ever monkeying around with the lights, right? Also, though, is that Kessel option. There's very little known. This is the only light out there that I would say has a configurable mounting height.
Yes.
Yeah, it starts off at 8 inches, but I can use the little snap-on reflectors and it brings it down, 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 and so I can mount it higher. And then also, I would say this one bridges the gap. This is that I don't need to go 20 inches, but I also don't need 5 inches. So around 12 inches, about a foot off the tank seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of the Hydra line. So the 2 Hydras really, I think, maybe optimal in many cases for a hood design.
Yeah. Because
hoods are very frequently, a foot off unless you want to suspend them. If you just want to mount them right up there. So in any case, you know what you're going to do now, and if you're going to mount it a little bit higher, there are options that are actually designed specifically for you. All right, best mixed tank. Okay, this is a conundrum here because mixed tank is one of the most popular tanks out there. I mean, I got a whole bunch of different types of corals, but what that really means is I got different corals, like corals that grow at 30 feet, corals that grow at 6 feet, corals that grow in high flow, low flow, tidal, like crashing flow. I got like all kinds of different environment, and it's really, really difficult to, provide that all at once. And there are easier or better ways for mixed tanks than others, starting with.
So one of the best ways to do it is to have some sort of puck style fixture that's going to give you a high par zone right under that fixture, and then adding in fill for 3-point lighting. And my favorite setup for this is going to be Kessels paired with fixtures like the AI blades, like the Blade Grow. You can get that nice muted fill light throughout the entire tank to keep your relative low par where it needs to be for the majority of corals. And then you've got those Kessels kicking out that extra light for your higher light corals like your SPS up closer to the top of the tank, and have it cascade the par down as you move away from the fixtures, which is really important to create those different par zones.
Yeah, when I started this hobby, this information wasn't really readily available. So it was like, I just want to put the green one next to the orange one, right? It looks like that, and then the green one doesn't make it. It just must have been the coral's fault, not mine.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, the reality is I was putting a coral that likes 300 par next to one that likes 30, and that's why it didn't make it. And I didn't have a par meter at the time and to figure it out. Okay, so one of the things is respect the mixed tank. Respect what you're trying to do here. And one of the solutions that we developed over the years was actually based on the AI Prime, which is you could go out and get 2 Hydra 64s, which is 8 little pucks in 2 fixtures, or I could go out and get 8 AI Primes and create a grid of lights that basically cover 1 square foot each, right?
Yeah.
And the knee jerk here is, oh, nobody would ever, set up 8 AI Primes. It's not true. People do it.
Yep.
And every single person that if you saw both of these things, you would know exactly why. A single brick of 4 lenses or spreading them out, why one of them is going to perform way better than the other one. It's universal truth.
Yes.
What it lets you do, though, is create those zones. So I can create a zone that's 300 par. I can also create one that's not that far away from it, that's only 50 par. And you can't visually see it. Like
No.
Your eye isn't tuned enough to be able to see par that way. And so it doesn't look unbalanced, but the corals are getting what you need. Now, I will say that's probably the nerdiest possible way to do it. More common than that would be the 3-point hybrid. I have one primary light. I'll probably put the corals that really like under the primary light. I'll have a light on the front and the back as fill light, and I'll probably put the SPS corals on the back, in which case I can kind of crank up the blade or strip light that's on the back to support that. And the one in the front can be fill light, but it can be much lower because I probably got LPS corals that are showing themselves all over the front and the bottom. So if you think about this a little bit deeper for a mixed tank, having multiple light sources and different types, like 3-point lighting, and it can be T5 strips, it can be LED strips, it can be whatever you're looking for, or just building out a grid like this, both really great options for a mixed tank. All right, next one. Best for when I just don't want to see the lights at all. Get them off the tank. I want all the benefit, but none of the eyesore.
Big shocker here. The thinnest fixture that I've ever seen, the AI Blade, does a fantastic job of just being out of the way. You can drop it on a tank. It sits right flush along the top of the tank, and it's like it's not there.
What was amazing to me is when we did our testing, I saw that you could mount the thing right on the top. It looks super slick. There's no arguing about it, but internally, like my hotspot alarm is going off.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like if you put the light so close, man, you're going to create hotspots. And it's true. If you put one in the middle, then it's going to be brighter in the middle, right underneath the light. But if I used 5 of them, we found out that was not the case. We found out if we used 4 of them, like you could mount these things so close. And like 5 was the only one, man, when we did 5 of them, it was the only one where you could have like the center of the tank, where there would normally be a hotspot, on average, really close to the outsides, all the way down to 0 inches, literally mounted flush.
That's insane.
Yeah, so if your goal is to make these things be unseen, and light should provide value, but shouldn't offend the eye, AI Blade is probably the best bet. All right, drum roll. It's Thomas's pick of the year. What is it?
It is the Radion G6 Pros. I just adore these fixtures. I've been using Radions for years and years and years, so maybe I've got some history bias going on, but I've tried a lot of lights, and I just find the Radion G6s to be the best light that I've personally used, especially for the types of tanks that I like to do. Usually SPS dominated mixed reefs, if that's even a thing, like heavy on SPS, but a lot of other corals in there too. The lights just have a really great spectrum. They're visually bright. They have the warm whites in there that really help to show off chromatic pigments in both fish and corals, but also all of those blues and UV spectrum, like closer to that UV end, that shows off a ton of fluorescence. They are just like that really nice balance for me, and I do prefer them with the diffusers. I just find that muted shimmer from them looks perfect with the diffusers on. He's got a great spray. I just love them. I adore them. I don't know what to tell you. They're just my favorite.
All right, one of the things that we didn't talk about there is that wider spectrum great for the biology, but also in our experiments we demonstrate great for the eye, because the wider the blue, we hit different fluorescent pigments that pop out as different colors. It creates that kind of HDR effect where, yeah, it looked cool before, but man, does it really pop now? So you can go watch that color episode of the Investigates. You can see why, but wider blue does all that. I will also tell you that of all the tanks that we have done here at BRS, there's a couple that really stand out. And one of them is the XXL 750, the WWC hybrid tank. And that thing, there's no question. You go look at it and say, G6s are working here. Oh, yeah. All right, so if I'm going SPS tank, it is probably also the Radion G6, because they're the only ones out there with the 430s in there. So it really evens out that blue spectrum. I really appreciate the wide angle while also not getting the light to be monstrous. You add in fill light to it if you want to make it better at any time. In fact, we're looking at doing that with the 750 now that all the corals have grown out over the years. If we add, a blade to the front of it, we can add, get around some of the, shadows created by when they get really monstrously big. Also, though, for an LPS tank for me, I am probably going blades. I don't really need all of the par. I really like the low profile. I like the shadow reductions. I like that I can tune all these things to what I need it to be, and relatively inexpensive as well. So if I was going LPS tank, probably blades, and with the SPS tank, G6s, maybe with a little bit of fill light. All right, if you like this and you want to know the best of the year in some other categories, that thing is right here, the playlist. You can see all the best of the year from all the things from skimmers to lights to algae solutions, everything you want to see right here.